Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, monamili wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful, crowded Mattress Studios here in the lovely neighborhood of Reedville, in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so delighted and so very honored that you would join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show. Tell your kids' teachers, their principal, their librarian. And, of course, we would love for you to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher Radio, wherever you get your podcasts. Our guest today is Jamilah Tompkins Bigelow. She is here to celebrate her beautiful children's book, Salat In Secret. Before we invite our guests into the studio, we want to invite you to connect with us on social media. Facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at readingwithyourkids on Instagram, at Jedley Magic on Twitter. And of course, we would love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Sign up for our free online magazine. It is debuting here in April. We are so excited about it. We've worked so hard on it. It's been a long time in coming, but it is finally here. Check it out today. And, of course, we would love for you to use the contact button at the top of the page. Let us know what you love about the podcast and also about the new magazine, what you think we could be doing better in both, and who you would like to hear on a future episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Join us right now from the beautiful city of Philadelphia. Our guest is here today to celebrate her new picture book. It's called Salat In Secret. Please welcome to the show, Jamilah Tompkins Bigelow. Jamilah, how are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
I'm delighted to have you on. Please tell us all about this new book.
So my new book, Salat In Secret, focuses on the Muslim daily prayer, which is called Salat. So a lot of people know that Muslims pray 5 times a day. This specific prayer is called Salat. And in this picture book, a little boy gets a Salat rug, for his birthday, his 7th birthday, and he decides he wants to pray all 5 daily prayers at their, set times, at 5 different times during the day. And one of those times is actually during the school day. And he is too shy, too scared to ask his teacher for a place to go and do his salat. And if you know anything about the salat, you're bowing, it's a little bit, you can't really do it in a way that doesn't grab attention. And so he wants a private place, but he's too shy to ask. So he actually tries to find secret places in school so that he can actually do his salat in secret, until he learns to kind of advocate for himself.
I like this. My thinking is this is a very valuable book for a number of reasons. Number one, if not for any other reason, it provides people in the United States and beyond an opportunity to look through a window and see into the lives of folks who practice Islam. And I know it's a huge religion. However, in places like the United States and Canada, it's not the majority religion, and there's a lot of not mystery isn't quite the word, just unknowing. We don't know as much about it as we should, because we should know about all of our neighbors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting thing because as soon as I posted about the book, a lot of Muslim, people on social media came out of woodwork like, oh my goodness, this needs to be talked about, because if you are an observant Muslim, this is sort of like that unknowing thing, right? That mystery thing that we kind of keep it in secret, right? It's like, if you're somebody who does do your 5 daily prayers and you need to be in a workspace or a school space, public place, and you want to do it on time, then you're trying to find secret places. Typically, some people don't. Some people are like, I'm going to do it wherever. But a lot of us, we are like looking for secret places and feeling the stress and the anxiety of that. Like, where am I going to actually perform my salat?
One of the questions that came to mind as you explaining that your main character is too shy to ask for a place to go and say his prayers is, what's the best way to deal with this? Do we encourage kids to speak up for themselves, or do we just sit back and say, there's going to be a lot of kids who don't feel comfortable asking, so let's just provide it for them? I'm not sure which is better. Certainly just providing things for people, whether it's religion or whatnot. It's a wonderful thought. It's a wonderful thing to do, but does it empower kids? Does it give kids that sort of notion that, you can ask for these things. You have a need and you should be able to, or let's help you learn how to stand up and ask for these things that you need.
That's a really good question. And I have some mixed thoughts about that. I mean, I think I'm hoping that with this book, it does empower a kid who wants to ask, because it's putting it out there, that may be an ask. But I also am hoping that, people just kind of make it available. I recently, went to visit some schools in Cambridge school district in Massachusetts. And, all the schools had an available prayer space. They had a sizable Muslim population, not the majority, still a minority within their school, but a sizable population. And they just had space set aside. And to be honest, it was really a relief to me because every time I was in one of the schools, it was just offered to me. And do you need a place to pray? We have a prayer area over here. And, often I didn't at the time, but when I did, it was nice to be I don't even have to think about this or ask or broach the topic or maybe just figure it out on my own. It's here. Mm-hmm. They've made that space for me and set that aside, for whoever needs it. And it doesn't have to be a space that is for even just one faith, right? Because we think about separation of, church and state and things like that. It can just be this is a meditation room, a prayer space. And, I can go in that space and I don't have to make a big deal about it. And I don't have to, a lot of times people don't want to feel like they're calling attention to themselves and their differences, honestly. Especially for a kid, I can see how it could be daunting and scary. So in some ways, it's nice to just be able to say, there is a space that I can just go to and I don't have to necessarily teach this to someone every single time. Yeah.
And I love that idea that there's just, there's this room. And if you need to pray a salat, if you want to say a rosary, if you just want to go and chill, right. That's something that's available. And Cambridge is a very unique and special place, living within a stone's throw from Cambridge. I do know it, and it's very unique here, and it's very unique here in Massachusetts. I think it's unique throughout the United States, and I think that there's a lot of things that we can learn from Cambridge and share with the rest of the country. What was there one thing in particular that inspired this book?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a book about grief, but it actually came out of my grief. And so I wrote this book 2 weeks after my father had passed away. And that actually happened to be 2 weeks before my youngest child was becoming 7. So this was a special time in certain ways, right? One was that I was having a lot of wonderful memories about my father. Things that brought me joy to remember. And one of the things that I remembered about him is that he was so unapologetic as a Muslim. And he often prayed in public spaces. And the kinds of work that he did, he was often out and about in the public. He worked as a cab driver and a chauffeur. At one point he worked as an ice cream man, and actually the father character in Salat in Secret is modeled after him, because the father character is an ice cream truck man. And, he would, park the ice cream truck. I worked with him on the ice cream truck sometimes, and he would just get out and pray if he wasn't close to a mosque. And, that always embarrassed me. Just like the child Muhammad, the main character of the story, sort of embarrassing. Like, oh my gosh, my dad is doing this thing in public in front of people, right? But it also taught me to be proud of who I am. And, so in the story, you have the, little Muhammad, who is proud of his father, but also really embarrassed when he stops, he goes and works with his dad on the ice cream truck. And, when he sees his dad getting mocked in public and doing prayer. And so that fear kind of translates to when he goes to the classroom, because he's like, well, is my teacher going to laugh at me? Because I've seen people laugh at my dad doing this thing that's really important to our family. But the other piece of it is that, like I said, my child was becoming 7 in just a few weeks, and 7 is a very important age in the Muslim faith, because this is the age when children are encouraged to pray the 5 daily prayers, right? Before, it's sort of like they just practice and they just kind of play around with it, but this is like, take it seriously now. You need to do all 5. And on his birthday, Muhammad's birthday in the book, he is given a salat rug as a gift, and from his father, who says, you're 7 now, you can pray all 5 daily prayers. And this is what encourages him. So being in that period, in that, in between, loss and in between, but still, rejoicing in my father's memory, and also in that period where my child was hitting that milestone, really inspired the story. And I remember writing it so quickly because it all just kind of came to me from those 2 people in my life.
Yeah. We celebrate the facts that books can be mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. And we already talked about how Salat in Secret can be a window. And imagining that it's very easy to understand how Salat in Secret can be also a mirror, and allowing kids who are Muslim to see themselves and hopefully empower them. That if they don't have a school district like Cambridge to stand up and say, hey, I need a place to pray. How do you think Salat in Secret can be a sliding glass door and allowing folks who practice Islam and folks who don't to come together to kind of celebrate each other and to grow closer together?
Well, I think that although Salat is specific to Muslims, the experience of having something special but misunderstood from either your religion or your cultural background is not unique, right? It's a very universal feeling, right? That a lot of people have things that, or accommodations that they need, or things that they take pride in, that they cherish, but that, other people won't get that, whether, even if it's like food or traditions or rituals, whatever it is. And I'm hoping that people will see, oh, that was, difficult to share. And that reminds me of this other thing, within my own family that's really special, but that I don't feel like I can bring, to my classroom, right? I can share that. I hope that they feel like, what, I can share it, that it is still valuable, that, our differences do add to the fabric of the places that we're in. So I'm hoping that, the spaces that we're in, right? That it's not something bad to be different, to have a difference. So I'm hoping people enter that space, but also, there is a scene as well, unfortunately, where, the police, kind of stop and watch Muhammad's father, as he's praying. And this is actually based on one of my father's friends, way back, many years ago. I remember the story of him praying and, near his ice cream truck, they used to do, and, police just kind of stopping and watching him and being frightened. And, I'm hoping that in some ways, this is a book that inspires the empathy of kind of walking, experiencing what that must feel like, right? To be different and then to almost be criminalized for your differences, right? And to recognize, that people don't need to be criminalized for their differences. So I'm hoping people can see, can kind of walk through that door, right? And recognize when somebody is doing that, or experiencing that, and how to be an ally in those types of situations.
Yeah, as you're talking about kids being somehow different and, being not ashamed, but being hesitant to share their differences. I remember one of my dear friends in grade school was Latvian, and I had never heard of the country of Latvia. At that time, it was part of the Soviet Union, but I would remember going over to his house and hearing his mom speak to him in a different language, and him coming out, and I would ask, "Hey, what's your mom say? And how do you, what did she say? And how do you say her?" And I was being really sincere and very just curious. And my friend was like, "Nope, no. You didn't hear anything. Nope, my mom didn't speak a different language to me. Don't know what you're talking about." And I felt bad for him because even at that age, I understood that he didn't want to share, that he felt embarrassed about it. And I didn't think there was anything for him to be embarrassed about.
Yeah. Children learn early, to associate difference with shame. And that's not what we want them to do, because all of us are different in some way. And that doesn't, celebrating our differences, I think, is what we want to do in our identity, not seeing it as shameful, but as something that just is beautiful, is a beautiful part of the human condition.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I love that. Celebrating our differences, and was something my kids had to learn how to do because their dad was a professional clown, and all their friends knew it. And that was kind of different. And they dealt with it pretty good.
yeah, that is. But that's a cool difference, right? But yeah, it's like, what's your dad do? Oh, he's a lawyer. Oh, he's a teacher. My dad's a clown. Yeah.
I think the parents at that school had a harder time dealing with it than the kids. Tell me what it, obviously you're proud of your dad, and I love that, and I love that you have that memory, and you're introducing us to him in a way through Salat In Secret, and you're also introducing your faith to us through Salat In Secret. What else is there about your faith that a lot of folks here in the States and perhaps the UK or Canada, wherever they're listening, should know about your faith?
I don't know. I mean, it's the huge question, right? Because there's so much, right, that we could talk about different things. I think just recognizing that there is so much diversity within the Muslim community, or I should say communities, right? Mm-hmm. Like we're so many different communities that we're not a monolith, like we're not really one thing. We're not one culture. We're not, we're many cultures representing, almost 2 billion people in the world. And even within the United States, UK, Canada, we are a representation of that diversity. So, sort of not assuming that we all practice the same way, that we all observe the same way, that we all have the same traditions and beliefs. We have different sects. We have different, just understanding the diversity within the diversity, I think is very important, because a lot of people make assumptions about what it means to be Muslim. I wrote a story about a very observant Muslim family, for example, but that doesn't mean that every Muslim family that attends, a school is going to want a place to observe their salat, because to be honest, there are a lot of Muslim families who do not do the 5 daily salat, right? So just understanding, that I think there have been single stories that have been told about Muslims. And understanding that that's not really the case, and you really have to be open and be able to be a listener to kind of understand, who really is who you're actually meeting. You're meeting a person first, and then their expression of Muslimness is going to be very different.
Yeah. I love that. Just helping our kids, helping us understand that just like when we hear the word Latino, it doesn't mean that everybody who's described by that word is the same, or Asian, or Irish, or Muslim. There's a diversity within that community too.
Right.
And it's our job to always look at the individual and see that they are part of our beautiful human family. One of the things that I was it was important for me to point out to my kids were that Muslims and Jews and Christians, we are all part of a bigger family, and that we a lot of the people that we look up to, and a lot of the books that we read, we share.
Right.
Yeah, and so I think that that's really important.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point too, because I think maybe I will add that as a faith thing. A lot of times people will say, well, Muslims believe in Allah, and they kind of say it like a separate God, but we don't actually believe that's a separate God. Allah means the God, like it's like an article, the God. So like it's like saying Dios or the God or God. And it's interesting because, for example, people who are Arab Christians, for example, they say Allah because they, like we believe in Allah. And they mean, what they, this in the same as the Christian sense. So what we're, when we say that, we are talking about, and I guess you would say God the Father, but we're talking about that Abrahamic God. Like that's what we mean. We're not talking about like a separate, right. There's a different, person, or different entity there. So, just, I don't know, something that made me think about.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important that we are all believing in the same creator, but we just have a different understanding of that creator and how best to follow the wishes of the creator.
Exactly.
Yeah. And since we all have the ultimate same goal, we should all be on the same team.
It would make sense. Yeah.
It would make sense. Tell me, we're just about, if I'm not mistaken, we're just about at the end of the season of Ramadan.
Yes.
Could you tell everybody? Because I think a lot of people understand they hear the word, they know the name. They understand that there's fasting that goes on, but can you tell us a little bit more about that celebration that we might not understand?
Sure. So Ramadan is the month that we believe that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that he first started receiving revelation. So this is why it's considered the holy month. When people talk about the mountain comes to Muhammad, when he was going to the mountain, right, and got that revelation, that's when we believe that, was during the month of Ramadan, the 9th month of the Islamic calendar. And so to commemorate, we engage in different practices. One is that we are very much, reciting the Quran, so spending a lot of time doing that. We are fasting, so no food or drink during daylight hours. Trying to increase our good deeds. So giving to charity, we fast sort of like, to show our gratefulness and kind of to experience that gratefulness and that peace and serenity of when you fast. So that's part of it. But one of the things too is that it's a really celebratory time. You spend a lot of time with family. Because we're fasting all day. At sunset, we get to break our fast. We have iftars, which are that's the breaking of the fast and people love to feast. We have invite people over for iftars. And it's kind of like if you had, kind of like a Thanksgiving feast, in some families, you're kind of going to different, events at your different mosques or, having people come to your home. And we're going to other people's homes where they're putting together feasts because, and it's amazing. Food is amazing after a full day of fasting, by the way. There's nothing like it. The taste, and so we have all of that as well. People are spending the night, we're in the last 10, nights of Ramadan. So what happens is people spend the night during those last 10 nights of Ramadan in the mosque or masjid. So they'll spend it there, praying and reciting the Quran, really being observant. So it's a really different, time. And at the end, there is a big holiday, Eid, and we're going to, we'll celebrate as well. That we went through this 30-day, time of fasting.
And this year, Eid is on the 20th of April?
I believe it's the 21st.
21st.
The 21st. And that's the other thing. It's always hard to know because we follow moon sighting. So it's when the new moon shows up. But yes, I believe it'd be the 21st of April this year.
Well, if you're listening to this on the day that we publish it, it's Eid is happening either today or tomorrow.
Such a great Eid present.
Yeah, so go out there and perhaps celebrate. It would be a lot of fun. Hey, I know people are going to want to know where they can go to find out more about Salat In Secret and also find out more about you.
Sure. So, you can always go to my website. It's JamilahTheWriter.com. My name is spelled Jamilah, thewriter.com. Random House Studio also has a page with Salat In Secret, but also you can find out more and link to it from JamilahTheWriter.com as well.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. We've had a really wonderful time learning about Salat In Secret, the beautiful picture book from our guest, Jamilah Tompkins Bigelow. Jamilah, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. And we want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to start by thanking our guest, Jamilah Tompkins Bigelow. Please be sure to check out Salat In Secret. Also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Jordan Saley, Will Cheever, Cassandra Masonet, Stephanie Davila. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.